Now we are going to watch the parole hearing of a full-fledged serial killer, maybe one of the most unknown but notorious serial killers. I never heard of him until now. He was locked up, given 500 years in prison in 1971. Yes, this is an Illinois parole hearing. Now, he was serving in the army in Germany, and they think that he did many, many more murders than the 4 to 12 victims that they have listed here. You'll hear about that in the parole hearing, and I'll share more of it with you in the unpacking. Can you imagine a serial killer having the rights to have a parole hearing? I don't know. Make it make sense. But what do we know? With that, let's jump in.
That's your call. Thank you. Good morning, board members. Good morning again, folks. Now we're back in session here for en banc hearing of today on parole requests of Mark Allen Smith, C number 10587. Mark Allen Smith was interviewed on July 3rd of 24 via video teleconference. Mr. Smith was coherent, was focused. However, it was a very short interview. Mr. Smith was quick to inform me that he was not interested in parole. Mr. Smith was clear on the amount of time that he must serve for his crimes and indicated to me he will leave when Arkansas DOC comes to get him to serve another conviction that is in the state. He did indicate to me that he was talking to me only because of the fact that he was having a better day. I was impressed, actually, because he had refused to do other interviews, I understand. Mr. Smith is approximately 75 years old. Mr. Smith was diagnosed with sociopathic behavior, as Mr. Tupius pointed out in the previous talk. Statement of facts. Mr. Smith had 3 individual cases, in fact. Mr. Smith is convicted and serving his time for the abduction of Miss Jean Bianchi, whom was 27 years old at the time. Smith sexually assaulted and stabbed her 17 times. He then threw her body off a bridge. Smith noticed that she was still alive, and he returned to her according to the file documents. He held her head underwater, but not before he put sand down her throat. These offenses occurred on or around January 27th, 1970. The second offense, Mr. Smith and the second victim, Janice Boilyard, worked at the same chemical company where Mr. Smith saw Miss Boilyard going downstairs to the basement and followed her. In an unwanted attempt to kiss her, Boilyard resisted, and when she did, Smith grabbed her by the throat and began choking and strangling her until she passed out. Smith then raped her. Smith then tied her pantyhose around her neck, strangling her to death. This offense, on or around February 27th, 1970, a month later. On the third offense, the murder on May 27th, 1970, just 3 months after the other murders, Smith was convicted for the rape and strangulation death of Miss Jean Lingenfeiter. She was just 17, a McHenry High School student. Smith is convicted for rape and murder by strangulation and dumped her body into a lake. Smith received 199 to 200 years. It is noted that all these sentences run consecutively. Furthermore, Smith was also convicted by Randolph County for attempted escape and received another 6 to 18 years again to run consecutively. Statement of Mr. Smith was, as he advised me, and I've indicated to you all, as the institutional staff, that he's not seeking parole. Mr. Smith stated that he will leave when the Department of Corrections at Arkansas comes to pick him up. And he reminded me, don't you understand how many years I have here? Criminal history, Mark Allen Smith, with the convictions being served for that in addition to the attempted escape at Pontiac, 6 to 18 years information in the file, also indicates that Mr. Smith admits to raping and murders of more than 3 women in Germany and possibly other places while stationed in Germany, which should be Interpol in terms of the state of Illinois' responsibility to pass this knowledge forward. Institutional adjustments. Mr. Smith is a medium security, moderate escape risk offender. Smith does have an A grade for lack of IDR since since 5/1990. His most serious recent was striking another inmate, 2/23/08. Family relations, Mark Smith, according to the institution, has not received or had any visits from family or friends since 2019. Smith indicates that he has no outside contacts as they've all passed away. Reentry plans do not exist. Mr. Smith has not submitted a petition for consideration and was not interested in going any further. The interview was actually very short in comparison. Actually, it was long compared to the other ones, but it was short. Opposed to relief, State's Attorney of Cook, McHenry in two cases in Randolph County for attempted escape. Many family members, friends, and other citizens, as Mr. Tupi in place of Mr. Bolin, who did the actual interviews, have indicated, and it's in the file and record, are opposed to Mr. Smith's release. Rationale, considering the heinous nature of the offenses. Well, should we continue? Yes, and then we'll go. Well, rationale, considering the heinous nature of these offenses by Mark Allen Smith, that his release would deprecate the seriousness of the offenses in law. Furthermore, the interests of public safety would definitely be at risk. Therefore, it's my recommendation to deny the parole of Mark Allen Smith, and I'm requesting of all the members of a 5-year set.
Ms. Bartell, do you want to come up and
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you will give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
If Mr. Smith be paroled, the Attorney General's office is requesting a 90-day stay for an evaluation under the Sexually Violent Persons Commitment Act. Thank you.
second?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Smith is one of our few people that I consider a serial murderer, and I'm going to support that motion. Seeing no further requests for discussion, Ally, call the roll.
Mr. Delgado,
Yes.
Mr. Coates,
Yes.
Ms. Globoker, Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Grubbs,
Yes.
Mr. Heaton,
Yes.
Ms. Schaffner,
Yes.
Ms. Tarones, Ms. Tyson,
Yes.
Mr. Tupi.
Yes. Do you have a second motion, Mr. Delgado, for a set?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the second motion would be a 5-year set.
By Mr. Heaton. Those in favor of the motion, Ally, call the roll.
Mr. Delgado,
Aye.
Mr. Coates,
Yes.
Ms. Globoker,
Yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Grubbs,
Yes.
Mr. Heaton,
Yes.
Ms. Schaffner,
Yes.
Ms. Tarones,
Yes.
Ms. Tyson,
Yes.
Mr. Tupi.
Yes. Both motions pass. You'll be sent around for signature requirements, but thank you, Mr. Delgado. Bye. Ally, do you want to call the next case? He's been killing women for years. Some we probably don't even know about. There's probably a lot we don't know about. Yeah, I was reading this Legally Sane where he put stars up on his visor so he knew how many he killed.
Can you even imagine that he has an opportunity for parole? And I'm going to read to you some of these articles. I was going through them. Richard sent I don't know, 50 of them. And I'm only going to go through I'm going to try to keep this down to 10 minutes so we can go to the other hearings. But a brief synopsis on this is that his first known crime, believe it or not, is when he was 8 years old and he stabbed his playmate 20 times with a penknife who was 6 years old. Yeah. Also, when he was, I think, 7 years old, he tried to strangle his fellow classmate. So this person who's been a monster has been a monster for a long time, and they think that he's been, as we heard in the hot mic over there, that yeah, he has a much longer list of murders. This is like really one of the biggest serial killers that so few of us know about. But there was a book that he was referring to in that hot mic called Legally Sane. Legally Sane. If you type it in Google, it shows up on Amazon. You can buy it used for $4,995. I am not joking. That is what it is selling for on Amazon. So apparently there are collectors that there are here. I'll show it to you. I don't think I have any no, I don't know. There's like sharing a screen is just, it's not worth it. But it's written in 1972. And yeah, $4,995 if you want to buy that book written about this serial killer. So serial killer wants to be forgotten. This is, I'm not sure when this was written. I think something like maybe 30 years ago or so. But let's see. Except in his own hometown, Mark has just achieved his goal of becoming a forgotten man. Time and nearly 20 years of life behind bars have robbed him of his boyish good looks, although he has retained his burly physique, his sandy beard, and his shoulder-length hair make him look all of his 41 years. Yeah, this was like 30 years ago about. So if it weren't for the fact that he dressed in denim prison garb and was sitting in a drab yellow interview room on Pontiac Correction Center, he could have been mistaken for a construction worker. Even with the prison grounds, he attempted to maintain a low profile, and when he discussed the 7 murders of young women he admitted to committing more than 20 years ago, they seemed like remote events that happened to someone else in another lifetime. I don't think I understood what I did then, Smith admitted earlier this month during his first interview in 18 years. I didn't have a sense of self-worth. I didn't like myself much, less anyone else. Smith, the state's forgotten serial killer, confessed to sexually assaulting and murdering 2 women in then largely rural Henry County, another in suburban Des Plaines, 1 in Mountain Home Arc, 3 in West Germany while he was stationed there in the U.S. Army. Since then, he has been questioned about murders in Vietnam, Korea, 5 other states, Washington, D.C. At one point, he was questioned for the 1966 murder of a 21-year-old Valerie Percy, daughter from former Illinois Senator Charles Percy. Prosecutors believe his victims may have exceeded 20 in the number, but because the crimes covered a 2-year period and occurred over a large geographic area, he did not receive the notoriety of such infamous killers as Charles Manson, Richard Speck, and John Wayne Gacy. The sexual assault and strangulation of 7-year-old Jean, am I pronounced this right? Is it Jean Ann Lingfelder? Is it Jean? In 1970, stunned the small northwest suburb of McHenry, but received surprisingly little attention in the Chicago news media, even after the details of the earlier murders dribbled out. A psychologist who examined Smith testified he is far more dangerous than Manson or Speck. He could talk to you about murdering people just like it was going to a grocery store, said McHenry County state's attorney, who helped prosecute Smith in 1971 and is now trying to keep him from being paroled. Can you imagine, by the way, he had his first parole opportunity 3 years after getting convicted for this, after getting a 500-year sentence, and he had that parole every 3 years. He has had something like, if I have to remember correctly, over 20 parole opportunities or 15 parole opportunities. Why? And what I've been reading, victims were writing in letters and showing up in every 3 years. These are lawmakers that allow this to happen, and we would all just sit back and say, we don't understand. It's like, what, you can't get together and write the legislation and say someone who does something like this cannot get parole opportunity every 3 years. And even now, they allow him an opportunity after 5 to get another rehearing, which is just like the brains of our. But we don't understand. We're just sheeple. What do we do? Right? We don't understand. We don't. Clearly, we don't. I mean, come on. How could we? We're not in government. So when Smith faces a prisoner review board on July 25th, the families of Lingfelter and another of his victims plan to attend the hearing to present petition containing 4,000 signatures and protesting letters opposed to reducing his 400-year sentence. Although Smith says he can successfully re-enter into society, he isn't asking to be paroled in Illinois. He realizes his chances are nil here, and besides, he'd rather go to Arkansas, where prisons are less crowded. He awaits a life sentence there for 1969 sexual assault and murder of another housewife. Well, I guess now he's comfortable where he is because he doesn't seem to want to go there. Or again, this can all be word manipulation and jokes and tricks with these guys, what they say, right? He claims he has changed. The "I just didn't care" attitude is gone, he says. And today he's an avid artist selling his oil paintings to prison officers. Hey, if that book goes for $5,000, imagine what those paintings go for. He's working on his 3rd college degree, and he's even taken another name, Remington Steele, which he said has no connection to the fictional television detective. I realized somewhere along the way that I don't like violent people, and that I don't like the kind of people who do what I did. Okay, bro. But then I have to justify what I did, and I can't. I'm aware that what I've done is serious, he said, but if they're looking for a monster locked up here, they're not going to find one. No, you're a monster. Yeah, you're the definition of monster. That is not the opinion shared by McHenry area residents old enough to remember May 12, 1970. Where am I in the time? I'm at 8 minutes. I'll do 2 more minutes, so I have to hurry through this. I don't know how many of you like hearing me doing these unpackings, so I know. I'm just saying, like, it's hard. It's hard to know how much to read when the whole parole hearing is 9 minutes. You know, how much of it am I going to talk already? May 27, 1970, when the body of Liffinger, an honors student at the local high school, was found a few days short of her graduation, a few days after the triple dating with Smith at the school platform. She had been strangled with her bra, police said. 4 months prior to that day, the body of Jean, a 27-year-old McHenry housewife with 2 children, was found in a creek 4 miles south. She had been sexually assaulted and stabbed to death. Police broke both cases after Smith, who was described as an athletic, polite, intelligent, and dashingly handsome kid next door, discovered her body while helping in a search for her. So it's a classic serial killer. He is classic serial killer. It's amazing that he doesn't have more stuff on him, right? These murders are things I'm not proud of, he now says. I hurt my family just as much as everyone. They didn't deserve that. It certainly served to punish me, and justice or otherwise is not going to help with families that I hurt. But prosecutors claim that Smith maintained a cold-blooded indifference when they interviewed him shortly after his arrest. Everyone has got to die sometime, prosecutors quoted Smith as saying during an early parole hearing. If I thought about that, maybe I might feel bad. So I don't think about it. Smith escaped the death penalty because the U.S. Supreme Court moratorium on it at the time. It's a shame, Baker said, because if anyone deserved to be put to death, he did. And he's still kicking and screaming and alive and up for parole in 5 more years. We could see him in 2029. Unbelievable. You can't make it up. This is what we have. Thank you, Richard, for sharing this information. I mean, he's born in 1949. He's got plenty of life in him. Can you even imagine? I just can't. I can't with this insanity. Who writes these laws? We have insane people writing laws. And the idea that they exist even till today because no one can change them. I don't know why. Do I just not know? Do I need to learn? I need a PhD. I guess I'll understand it when I have a PhD. So we saw an Illinois hearing. If you want to see more of these, let me know. as you can see, they didn't show up, but we do have Illinois hearings where they do show up. They're just a little different. They're different than what I'm used to, and I got to pick and choose what I do. So if you like something, send me an email or put it in the comment section. And we'll jump to another hearing, or I'll let you go. See how I play this out.
Going downstairs to the basement and followed her. In an unwanted attempt to kiss her, Baudillard resisted, and when she did, Smith grabbed her by the throat and began choking and strangling her until she passed out. Smith then raped her. Smith then tied her pantyhose around her neck, strangling her to death.